Yes, you have a lot.
I can shout. I'm sure they can hear me, but it will be very tough. Okay, there's one. Okay, it's better with the mic, right? Okay. Assalamu alaikum again. Welcome after lunch. For those that need to grab coffee, I'll give you 30 seconds to come back with it to make sure that you're awake, because it is an honor and a privilege to be in between two gentlemen, both leading two very instrumental banks in Oman. First, as introduced by our brother Ahmad, is our brother from Meethaq Bank, which is the largest Islamic banking window in Oman. Its mother is Bank Muscat. Of course, that's the largest banking piece of the pie here in Oman. Mr. Shamzani Hussain. An amazing career banker who's coming into Oman very recently from Dubai. Assalamu alaikum. Okay. The second is our brother from Bank Nizwa, Oman's first fully dedicated Islamic bank, which launched its operation in 2013. Our CEO Khaled Al-Khayyad. Assalamu alaikum. Brothers Mike, we will share. Okay, so just to make sure we don't talk over each other. Okay, so what's going to happen is we have 3 questions that both the brothers will answer, basically to give you a perspective of how it is to manage an Islamic window, which most of you are familiar with, basically having a conventional mother and then having a window of an Islamic bank. And a fully fledged Islamic bank. I'm sure the dynamics are different, although the questions will apply to both. And after that, we'll just take it on as casual as possible. We've covered most of the questions while we were in the other place. So I'll try to mimic all of the questions that we've had, because we had a good conversation, to share it with everyone else. So the first question that we would like to ask is, from a larger industry perspective, is there a gap? Is there a gap that in the scope of proposition between Islamic bank and conventional? If so, what are the new initiatives or trends in technology and solutions being introduced in the Islamic banking space to mitigate this gap? So I suppose we'll start with you.
Thank you, Sister Joann. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much to, firstly, to the organizer for having me here, for the invite. And I'm very pleased to actually meet so many brothers and sisters which are very keen to know more about Islamic finance and to discuss more about Islamic finance. And mashallah, this is actually a very good forum to do so. Just to answer Sister Joann's question, perhaps I think we should start looking at the common challenges first, within the industry. So, for example, if we look at the industry or the Islamic finance business from a subscription or penetration perspective, if you look at what you call the level of penetration across, for example, geographies, across segments, and then across products, there are varying degrees of penetration that we are seeing at this point in time. Because we're looking at it again, your question is versus conventional.
Yes.
So, if you look at the penetration level across geographies for Islamic finance, for example, if you look at Saudi Arabia, now it's more or less about 70%. So if you could look at UAE, it's about 22-23%. Bahrain, again, is about 32%. Kuwait is now about 50%, 49-50%. And Oman is quite unique because Oman just started about 4, 5, 6 years ago. But having said that, within 5 to 6 years, it has reached 13% at a CAGR or average growth of about, I think, about 40% a year. So that's remarkable, and a remarkable achievement. And if you look at, again, the largest Islamic populated country in the world, which is Indonesia, although it's at 7.5%, but for the last 5 years, Indonesia's Islamic finance industry has been growing at 20% every year. And that's within a very large economy. Yeah? So, there are various degree of penetration across geographies, across segments. If you look at, for example, the large corporates, if you look at, SMEs, you look at microfinance, you look at retail, again, varying degrees, different degrees of penetration as well. Products, if you look at products, again, I think, it's a work in progress, as our brother doctor just mentioned just now. Various degrees of progress across product as well, because there are still issues around Sharia, around documentation, around what you call product suites, which can be improvised against conventional. And if you look at products, such as project finance, trade finance, for example, there are huge potential for Islamic finance to basically tap into and increase our market share. Especially if you look at all the various economic activities that are going on. If you look at what China is doing with One Belt, One Road, and all these sort of things. So there are a lot of opportunities for the Islamic banking industry to go in and tap into. From a technology and infrastructure perspective, for example, given that the industry is new, most of the Islamic businesses, especially the full-fledged banks, are new. Therefore, the cost that they have to incur, from an infrastructure and technology perspective, is actually quite a high ratio of the operational cost. Yes. So that's again is the challenge. Yeah. So if you want to compare this conventional, again, we can talk about it, for the next few more hours. There's a lot of challenges. Yeah. But having said that, and I do agree with the rest of the other speakers, there's been humongous progress and achievements within the industry. If you look at it, from a 45, 50 years sort of track record, I think this industry has achieved, a huge, excellent, remarkable achievements, alhamdulillah. So I think, moving forward, what needs to be done basically is, for the players in regulators, standard setting bodies, the financial institutions, technology providers, to come together and see what we can do to close the gap. So I think that's what's key, moving forward.
Okay, so the same question applies, but I'd like to hone in on your experience having to have started it from a fresh blueprint. I mean, was the challenges very similar to someone like that had a very strong conventional mother? Because very rarely will I have that opportunity to sit side by side with someone who created something from basically the foundations, and often you have that opportunity to create something that's really more or less visionary, as opposed to trying to rework something that already exists.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for having me here today. It's my pleasure. Actually, just to take the answer from where we actually stood, I think the differences or the gap between the conventional as well as the Islamic, it's coming only because there is a Sharia concern. So anything is Sharia compliant, I think Islamic banks can do at the same efficiency and the same capacity. This is what we understand. We have a good experience in the case of Oman, the Islamic finance in Oman. I think it's a unique experience. Where we started a couple of years back, and the regulator selected to have the structure of having full-fledged banks along with windows to start on the same time. I think the case of Bank Nizwa being the first Islamic bank in Oman, we went through the actual experience of having Islamic banking industry in the country of Sultanate Oman. While we understand the Sultanate came the last one into the Islamic banking, but I think they took the fast track that already reflected in the market share. When it comes into challenges, I just want to mention something. I think it's experience, and we are learning every day from the experience. When we started with the challenges of the industry. Whenever you have industry, you will have challenges facing that, coming from the different things related to the human resources, the another kind of lack of the awareness when it comes into all the stakeholders, including the bankers as well as the customers. But the one strong item we almost actually recorded this to the central bank is the infrastructure. And this country came with regulations which is one of the best according to our experience when compared to the neighbors and other Islamic countries. And this is actually provide a robust infrastructure to start. This is one good thing, but the problems we faced later, it was a matter of the explanation and interpretation of the regulation itself. Otherwise, things moving fine. Being a fully-fledged bank, we came with more actual challenges because we can understand in the banking sector, it's very clear there. Banking sector, they are facing challenges. When it comes into Islamic banking faces the same challenges along with another challenges. When it comes into fully-fledged banks, we take the conventional, the Islamic, as well as being fully-fledged. So we are on the third side of the challenges. We are facing a lot of challenges, and we are learning day after day. What I want to mention, I think evaluation in general, all the challenges reduced and maybe removed as we go after 5 years. We actually set a map to this industry to see it in stages. We started the startup phase for the first 3 to 5 years as industry, including the windows as well as the full-fledged. Then we move to the second level where it's the growth. The most important thing here is the penetration. And I do agree with Dr. Shahar in his presentation. This should be used by Islamic Bank to penetrate more and to bring more retail into the banking sector as well. This is opportunity. If we really can be in line with the regulatory compliance as Sharia compliance, I think there is nothing will leave the bank from doing and move on this step. This is a very important step going through the digitalization in order to bring more market share. The experience here with us, just when we started, it was easier to reach the retail because the products are very basic and well known. You are provide personal finance or auto finance or a mortgage. But it was really difficult to penetrate the corporate side along with the SME because of the products and the understanding of the counterparties. Just to also the governmental and pension funds, the challenge was there. But as we go year after year, maybe if I stood today and I was standing today and I can do evaluation, things totally different. You can see Islamic banks fully-fledged as well as window, going to all the economical sectors, going to all the retail segments. We are also have a large size of the market share from the pension funds and the governmental institutions. So this is the first step where we can evaluate the Islamic banking experience in Oman. You reach that level, but a lot to come. So we need now to reshape our strategy to move to the second level. So in reality, I think challenges as we go is reducing. Still there is opportunity. We still believe Oman will have better opportunity. As Dr. Shah mentioned, I think the market share will be higher than the others based on that. Because going back to the numbers, not only the market share is a number, but we need to go more details. The year-on-year growth, the incremental growth in the banking sector, both in asset and deposits, going 30 to 40% to the Islamic banks from the total. While when we started, we came with the very global economical situation. It was really impacted everyone. In spite of that, we continued to grow. So the most critical part is the incremental in the banking sector. And I will end with a message here, talking about the corporate side and the SMEs. We are seeing good flow and migration from the conventional to the Islamic banking and windows from the corporate side. And this is a maturity level to the industry.
Thank you. So on the next question, we'd like to focus a little bit more on your experience with digitalizations. How has your experience helped? I suppose this applies for both the conventional and the Islamic space. How has this helped with your experiences in your individual banks? And perhaps what are the challenges that we are seeing? Earlier on, we were discussing about the digital divide and stuff like that. So can you enlighten us on your experience on this as you step into this role?
Yeah, I mean, for us, in terms of digitization, firstly, I think what I would like to also touch is the importance of fintech for the industry, and we get into the digitization within our institutions or our Oman industry per se. So I think what's important with the industry, especially when it comes to fintech, is number one, if you look at the industry as a whole, the Islamic banking industry as a whole, the main challenge is reach and coverage. Yeah, reach and coverage. Because if you look at the availability of Islamic banking solutions, is actually right now concentrated mainly in the core Islamic countries. Yeah, from a global perspective. Now, if you look at Oman, for example, again, there's the same issue because Oman has got a lot of the areas where it's in the interior, for example, where it takes a long distance and a long time for a particular customer to reach, a branch or to have access to Islamic banking. So that's Oman. But if you look at it more from a global perspective, there are many Muslims, for example, which are living in places like, Africa, South America, North America, some places in Europe, for example, which wants to have Islamic banking, but they do not have access because of the limitations that we have in terms of reach. Now, fintech actually plays a significant role here, to enable that financial inclusion to take place. Secondly, if you look at the Islamic population demographics, so if you look at the OIC countries population today, I think it's about somewhere around 2 billion. Now, out of these 2 billion people, I would say about 65% of the population in the OIC countries are below the age of 24. Below the age of 24. And out of this, segment of below the age of 24, 65% of them has got access to mobile technology, right? And the rate of usage of mobile technology, for this particular group of below 24 is increasing at 35% every year. Yeah, so that's actually can be a huge game changer here for Islamic finance. Yeah, so the other piece that we should be looking at, in terms of why this is important is again, a few things. Now, if you look at what you call the reason why, again for us when we actually started, we look at a few things which is quite important. Number one, the ability for us to basically digitize our product. So which means instead of actually relying on our brick and mortar branch infrastructure, we can now digitize our product, and it can be available through digitization mode. That's important. Number two is, as I mentioned, financial inclusion, right? That creates a much faster scale of financial inclusion if we were to basically maximize on the usage of fintech digitization. The other bit that's very important as well, and this is something which is discussed in all the forums, is de-risking, right? And financial technology and digitalization is actually a very powerful tool for de-risking. So we spoke, I think in the morning, you might have spoken about blockchain, you might have spoken about all the other what you call technology that can help banks to de-risk. And with that also comes the simpler sort of form of what you call facilitation to provide, or rather to facilitate transaction time, increase our service levels. Now, this is also quite important, especially if you're looking at the lower spectrum, the retail side and the lower spectrum, where you need to basically manage the scale, the large scale, as well as the cost that's associated with managing this business at the lower spectrum. So that's pretty much I think what's important around digitalization of fintech.
So going back to you on the same question as we were discussing earlier, as I was looking to your website, and I remember to be on the purple side as I was saying, I saw that there was that e-wallet, and you were sharing that this is an initiative by the central bank. It amazes me because in our neck of the woods, that's not heard of. I mean, it's amazing that your central bank facilitates this. Yes, some inputs on this and your experience with the bank in terms of your efforts to go digital.
Yes, I've touched on e-wallet through the same concept, but I want to share some thoughts coming, and this is just to share with you, coming from the executive management, the board, the CEO thoughts about digital transformation and going digital. This is something very important to touch in such forum because we are non-technical guys sitting in the lead of the bank, and we are relying a lot on the technical guys to do that. So the first thing for me in a concern is the talent. People at executive management, CEOs or board responsible for making decisions on digital transformation and decision. This is something very important to have a good understanding in depth. Second, and it's more important, is the technical guys, IT guys, transformation guys. This is the talent is something very, very critical to any success. Otherwise, investments cost something coming, but this is not the first priority. From my experience, this is most important. When we are looking from management perspective to the digitalization, we are looking as a means of how can we do work. It's not a matter of a task we are doing digital transformation, it's a matter of doing things in a way to be in line. Because why we are saying this simply, because now according to the recent surveys or statistics, it's shown that the CEOs in global and maybe in states, they are talking about the main challenge in the future of the business industry is coming through the technological factors or technology impact. So this is now agreed by everyone. And we can say simply each industry or business, it has its own digital future. And banking, we are part of that life. So unless we reach and compete and be in line to get the same experience with the clients, there will be a gap. I'm not going here to talk about another industries which actually went out of the life because of they are not following the codec, for example. But in the banking sector, our clients, either they are on the retail side, for example, on the youth segment, they are using everyone. Our clients, they are using the mobile, and they have access to everything. Now they are booking their flights, they are booking their restaurants, and they should. We are expecting to have the same treatment and expectation from the banking sector. Unless we reach that, there is a gap we have to work on. This is a very simple situation. Going back to the experience of Islamic banking in Oman, we started 2013, we opened doors. And at that time, one of our decisions we made at the banks, including fully-fledged as well as Windows, is to go as fast as possible with the digitalization at that time, to provide mobile applications, to provide internet. In a couple of years, maybe in a 1 year, couple of months, you have to be ready to do that. While we have neighbors here, other banks in Oman, they spend 10 years, 5 years or more till they reach that solution. So we were actually trying to be as soon as possible aligned, offering our products and services to be aligned with the industry. So in reality, from my point of view, when I'm looking to the transformation or the digitalization, we believe we have to rethink of the way we are looking to our customers, because usually in banking we are looking to our customers in a masses base and segment base. Now I think we should look into this coming from the customer network itself. We have to change our mind, and we have to look to the behavior, digital behaviors of the clients, and try to bring that, because our strategy will continue focusing on customers end to end, but the way we are dealing and delivering the services, products should be in line with the life we are living today. So this is in general, and when it comes into the e-wallet, actually this is something in Oman coming as an initiative from the central bank, and all the banks I think already engaged into that. My actually personal evaluation started as a good initiative. It came from central bank, banks committed, but I think the migration is still not up according to the expectation. Because if you go back to any bank, fully-fledged or Windows, and you can see the mix between your customers. For example, you have 100,000 customers, you can find only 20% they are using these e-channels and digital-based transactions, others still moving there. So this is very important, because even at a macro level, there is no statistics shows actually how much the digital business at a macro level, where we are into that. And this is also applied to us, our customers, to what extent we should put this as a baseline, and we target to migrate and increase and encourage people to move into this. This is also can come and help on that.
If I can just add to Brother Khaled, I just want to ask here in the audience, who's gone to school in the 80s and 90s?
Oh my gosh, that's
80s and 90s.
question. I'm not
80s and 90s.
Okay.
80s and 90s.
I'm still in school.
Okay, now what I'm asking you question is this. Do you remember how heavy your backpack was? You remember how heavy? It was 5 kilos, 6 kilos? Easily, right? So when I see my daughter's backpack, right, it's about half a kilo. And out of that half a kilo, maybe 0.4 kilo is a lunchbox. Yeah? And you know, nowadays they're carrying iPads and laptops to school, and everything is on iPads and laptops, right? So why I'm saying this is because you know, if you see that transformation in technology in schools, right, in our life, the same thing is happening with our clients in banks, right? So today, if you look at our product life cycles, right? Both myself and Khaled joined banking in the 90s. We were just talking about it in the morning. In the 90s, the product life cycle is maybe 10 to 15 years. A single product can last 10 to 15 years. Today, a single product may last maybe 3 years, maximum, right? Because of technology. 95% of products are driven by technology. And you know, that is just going to be more intensified, you know, as we move forward. So that's how important it is today.
Yes, so it's both promising and a little scary sometimes, because now you have so many solutions and left and right it's coming up, which to choose, what not to choose. Before you're able to migrate, even server migration takes forever. Now if you're gonna wait for that, I mean, by the time you migrate it's no longer applicable. So I mean, where do you strike the balance, I suppose? I mean, where do you draw the line on how shall I say, critical it is to implement? Where do we then say it's a little too much and we take pause in terms of all of the innovations that come? How do you weed from all of the offerings and say, yeah, this is what works for us? I mean, you have to concern yourself with security, you have to, of course, do the testing, you have to make sure that it's all also applicable to the rest of the existing stuff that you already have. What challenges do you face when it comes to saying that, yeah, we'll implement this, and is there a magic formula for that as a heads of your particular institutions?
Well, I think there is the answer is infinity, right? There is no end to this, because for as long as technology evolves, for as long as our customer requirements and customer appetite evolves together with that technology, as bankers we have to ensure that we're able to meet those expectations. And this will only continue to evolve. I mean, technology will get from one level to another level. When I start learning how to use a computer, I remember the screen was green, right? The screen was just green, yeah. And I was using a floppy disk, right?
DOS, right?
DOS, right? Where you need to actually key in a formula before you can even open the thin screen, right? So today is a totally different world altogether, right? Everything is done on your mobile phone, for example, right? So, and this will continue to evolve. Maybe in 5 years you don't even carry a mobile phone. Yeah, maybe everything is done through something else, a chip in your head or a chip in your brain or whatever. And as bankers, banks will continue to evolve. Based on what's happening in the outside world. You can't detach yourself from that. You can't say, okay, this is enough. I mean, look at what happened to Nokia. Look at what happened to Motorola, right? Because they say this is enough, right? And they don't want to evolve. BlackBerry. Right? I was a huge fan of BlackBerry for 15 years. Everybody switched to iPhone. I was still using BlackBerry, right? But finally, I decided,
because they said enough.
Exactly.
Yes. So, do you find that same challenge, that there's so many solutions out there and you can't even tell which is which and which is real and which is not anymore?
No, actually, I think the banking sector in general is very sophisticated and regulated sector, and this is coming with impact. Whenever you have the internet and have access, you are exposed to threats. So challenges mainly, I think the first one is the external threats which you are exposed to. So you need to have a balance as you go, and with this advancement, you need to keep balance to maintain, because in the banking sector we are responsible for the funds as well as the information of the clients. This is very valuable asset, so you need to maintain that. This is the first, I think, the most critical part we have to keep, and also the regulatory bodies also they are insist on this usually. So if you are in a good position balancing the threats and the cyber risks related, that's something will be with a limit, within that. And this is first. The second, I think things we can move better because I agree with Shamzani. This is something ongoing, and as we go, maybe 3 years, 5 years, we'll have something. So we need to keep that going on.
Yeah. So we feel that right now most of the solutions often before were developed in-house, right? So you're going to have this big blue to create solutions for you, and it's created and it's crafted there, and it's the whole long process to create. Now I think the solutions are normally coming already packaged, and you're just gonna pay. So now your leaders, the CEOs, is not anymore that who creates the solution, but picks from the best solution that's out in the market, and to be able to weed out which applies and then integrate it to your individual banks. Do you feel that this is true? I mean, the solutions are already out there, right? You just then see what's best for you and what's most applicable, I suppose.
Yeah, this is where you need to create a balance. I've been in quite a few forums, which I've seen different views. Some bankers saying no, they don't quite believe in the what you call subscribing to external vendors coming in, to help them and all that. And some are very open to it. I think there needs to be a balance because if you want to, like what Brother Khaled mentioned, we are behind the conventional space, maybe by 20 years, right? So, and especially for the new banks and the new businesses in the industry, we need to basically play a catch-up game with our conventional, especially with the conventional, counterparts. And, I always believe that, as a business, the Islamic banking industry needs to always look at the conventional as a benchmark. You cannot compete with each other. When I start looking at another Islamic bank as a benchmark, there is always the conventional space, which is actually much higher in terms of standards. So as industry together, we have to look at the conventional space as a benchmark. We have to come together and work on a lot of things collaboratively to bring us to that space. And that would mean that we have to be open, to considering and assessing propositions around fintech that can help us, especially with managing costs, increasing efficiency, and at the same time enhancing the security infrastructure that we have.
Amazing. Okay.
On the same particular item, from a digital strategy perspective, one of the domains is the competition, because you need to keep eyes on the customers, as you need also to look into the market, what kind of competition, and you have to reach that. So there's two actually positions. One, if you have the appetite, if you are a small bank with limited resources, it's better to go to outsource and get that from the market, because we are at the end of the day bankers, and you leave that the specialized person to provide the service to you, and you will be at the niche or the top of the services provided in the market. So I think on the small size businesses in banks or something in regions like our areas here, it's better to have a partnership with the providers. Once they are providing you with a security level, regulatory compliance, that will be better. On the larger size, we have banks, they have a very huge balance sheet, and they have a large size of business where they can have their own subsidiaries or solutions. This is something they can source. But I think the best solution strategically to reach the market fast, it's better to partner with a tested vendor who already proved himself in the market.
Very good, very good. So I think that's it. I don't know if we have time for questions, but I think we've covered an extensive amount of information. I'd like to thank you both. I'd like to give you an opportunity to close. Probably, if we were to fast forward to 1 year, maybe the second Omani Fintech Forum. Today, if there were one thing that you would be able to focus on in terms of a project or an initiative, what would you feel that was best? Everything, all of the operation stuff, put to a pause, and you were to choose one thing that you would do to maybe do something for Islamic finance or specific to your bank or whatever, given that, what's that one thing that you would like to focus on? Assuming that you set aside all of the other things.
I think she left the toughest question for us.
Yeah. This was not part of the script, so we'll listen.
This part of the script, yeah. So for me, what I like to look at is for the industry to move more towards standardization and collaborating together, to bring the industry to another level. Especially given what we call given the challenges that the industry is facing, we have common challenges.
Yes.
And I think it would be very useful if all of us come together and work together on these common challenges. So I think that's what we should be doing, especially within the Omani market.
Mashallah, mashallah.
From my side, I think what we are looking for as a priority, we want to see this industry providing product services end-to-end, from financing to cash transactional banking, liabilities. We want to see full set of products automated. This is the first initiative. The second, we want the industry, including the takaful, including the investments and the banks, the Islamic banks, to integrate together to take this industry to the second level.
MashaAllah. So with that, I would like to close. I'd like to thank both of you. I'm very much inspired with the way Oman is in terms of regulatory framework, in terms of how the central bank supports you overall. And as I said, my bosses are 6 Islamic bank CEOs, and the dynamics is quite unique. And being between the two of you is quite inspiring, and I hope that indeed next year, when we return, hopefully, for the second FinTech Forum, that this comes to its fruition. Thank you for your time.
Now it's time for us to ask you a question.
No. I'm not in the panel. Thank you so much.